My daddy brought a gun to my head, said, if you kiss a boy, I'm gonna shoot you dead. So I tied him up with gaffer tape and locked him in the shed. And I went out to the garden and I fucked my best friend, 'cause my high hopes are getting low. 'Cause these people are so old. The way they think about it all. If I tried, I would never know. It's alright, we'll survive. 'Cause parents ain't always right. Autism is uniquely human. Our social world requires high level abstraction. There are animal analogs that exist as models, but their social deficiencies are often different, and they're just that, social deficiencies. They aren't autism in the way that we know it in humans, not in the way that we define it. It's not really like autism in the way that we think of it. Like in mice, which are social animals, but they're not very abstract. They don't have, language or complex theories of themselves as people. In that way, it's unlike conditions like cancer, which do have direct analogs that we can study in a lab. The L23IT neurons underwent massive development during early hominin evolution. This is really the area that seems to come into play here. Humans benefit from neurodiversity. I'm on the spectrum, and neurotypical people's problems amaze me sometimes. I don't have those problems. And the same is true in reverse. Neurotypical people can often look at my problems and instantly know the solution that I've been missing. We benefit from diverse perspectives and ways of thinking at the group level. That benefit comes at the cost of the individual typically. In the past, I argued that Homo sapiens are evolving towards eusociality. Evolution often favors benefit at the group level and even selection at the group level when it comes to eusocial species rather than the individual, as long as it's a net positive at the group level. This could even select for things you wouldn't expect, like sterile workers, which is the thing that we are still lacking to be considered a eusocial species, is just that we don't have reproductive castes, or that like your role in society isn't supposed to be determined by where you were born or like your circumstances or how you were born. But it will sometimes select for things you wouldn't expect, like sterile workers or bald autistic apes. And that can happen because we benefit from diversity. You know, there, this problem, this country has problems, and we all recognize that. But, a lot of us are losing hope that humanity has the ability to solve these problems. And it's depressing to think that way. But also, you have to think America, we do have neurodiverse populace. We have people on the spectrum. We have people who think differently. We have experts. We have people, we've had climate scientists talking and warning us for decades about global warming, and we're just not doing enough to fight like climate change. And there's been an active campaign to of misinformation, of disinformation, to fight the campaign of educating the populace. Like, this country has problems. And I think that in my opinion, the thing that sets America apart from other countries is our country's focus on individualism. I think that our narrative of rugged individualism and our obsession with that, and the narrative, like the whole bootstraps narrative, the focus on the individual to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, and you can do anything with your life if you just work hard enough. You could be successful, you could do anything, the American dream. Like, so all of this thing is all predicated on the ability to succeed at the individual level, not at the group level. We do not focus on people as a collective in this country. And I think that that's what our fatal flaw is. I think that that's why capitalism is able to run amok here, because at the individual level, they're tricking us into thinking of companies like their people, and we're bailing like companies out of trouble because it keeps the numbers looking good. Because if the rich fall, the whole economy falls. If the rich keep doing well and just everyone else falls, then the economy tends to recover quicker. So it's not a horrible strategy, I don't want to be too harsh on them in that regard. Like, no one was voting for them to kick shit down and bring everything down in the short term so that we could fix it. No one was voting for that. But at the same time, we've been focusing for way too long on just the individual. Like, we need to think about others. You need to care about how your neighbors are doing, not just how you're doing. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, I am a crazy leftist, so don't take my word for take everything I say with a grain of salt. This is not all science here. But let me think. Our focus on the individual and individualism and the glorification of doing everything on your own and not needing anyone else, I think is the reason why capitalism has been able to run amok here in the way that it just has not in many other places. I think that most other countries have a little bit more care for the people around them. I think that, I mean, I think that's changing everywhere. With the internet and everything, I think that everyone is feeling a little bit more isolated these days, especially after COVID lockdown and everything. But at the same time, I still think that America is a little uniquely focused on this narrative that we're really invested in. It's the American dream. And we just have to remember that. So studies have found that life expectancy now in America, it functions more like a eusocial society, because life expectancy is determined by how good the hospitals we have access to are. And so it depends on the area. So, like, people who are in range of this hospital might have a life expectancy of 78. And so all of your neighbors share a life expectancy with you that people down the road just do not, because they go to a different hospital. And the same is true with schools. And that's who you know, because then that's who you're interacting with at school. And so we actually, scientists have done studies that show that we are really showing signs of, you know, be, basically becoming a eusocial species. And our life expectancy is basically now determined by the hive mind, by the rules of the society, that the societal rules that we make up. And so I think that we would benefit actually, but the problem is also that our elections, it's like a popularity contest. Like, politics is like a popularity contest, and typically people on the spectrum tend to have bad communication and like social skills. That's where they tend to struggle. And so it's hard to imagine people supporting very many neurodiverse politicians. Like, it's hard to imagine us electing many autistic presidents. But I think that we would benefit from just hearing people out. Like I've always said, no politician is able to know everything. We have been evolving smaller brains as a species for thousands of years because we've been relying on experts and people in our tribes to know things. We don't have to know everything. And now we have libraries. We can look things up. We can ask people who know more than us. We have so many things at our disposal that we don't need to have to think everything through from scratch. But we're behaving as a country like we do. We're not consulting the experts who know the solution to the problems and implementing that. We're just discrediting them and doing nothing. And it's like, I don't blame politicians for not knowing everything. Like, if some mayor gets a request to build a coffee shop on this empty lot and they just approve it, how are they supposed to know if there was like this pond that has this weird algae that's only in like endemic to that pond? And so if you pave over this pond, then it will go extinct. No one would know that. No politician, no mayor, no one who was elected mayor. That's not a qualifying question. So there's no way that they could be expected to know that. But there are experts whose job it is to know those things. And so it's important that we have systems in place that these people are being consulted and heard and their solutions are being implemented. And so many of our problems are just have common sense solutions. And at this point, we're just grinding we're just being obstinate. We're just refusing to do it. We know how to fix these problems. We just are not doing it. And that's what's so frustrating for people, I think, because I think that it's pretty obvious what we need. But I think that we're a little too stuck to the old way of doing things, and change is scary. Change can be very hard in the short term. And just like things that can be great at the group level can be hard at the individual level, going through a revolution, it sucks, even if you're leading the revolution. People who were leading the French Revolution, people who were operating the guillotines, that wasn't a super chill time for them. It was probably pretty stressful. They probably were not eating regularly. It's not a great way to live if you're living a life of conflict. No one really wants that. Everyone really just wants to be happy and to be at peace and to be at harmony with the people around them. We all share the same basic needs. We know what people need. We can give that to them. We have resources in this country. We are just choosing not to help. They say like an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And they proven time and time again that if you just give people like their basic needs, if you're just covering enough to where people are able to use the medical system properly, if they just have the information and can go, like if it was just free to get health care, we would have such a healthier populace. If people were just getting vaccinated and just having their blood pressure checked, like there's so many people. I work on the phone in Medicare insurance, and there are so many people I talk to who are like, no, I'm healthy, I don't need a doctor. You do. You do. At some point, your body is going to deteriorate. That is just what is happening. It is called senescence. It's aging. It's dying. It happens. And you're at the age where it is happening. And you need to be with a doctor because at some point, it's going to get bad. You will die. And that is not that's not a fun time. You will definitely regret not years before doing these tiny things that could have prevented this. And the thing is, it's just in America, they don't even know. They think that they think that it's good that they take no medicine and don't need to check their blood pressure and don't need to do all these things. And I agree that it is not good to just be on pills. And I don't think that our medical system is great right now in its current form. But we have doctors and they are good. If we just fixed our country's, like if we just fixed our people, if we gave people access to them, because that's where the problem lies, and it's on the insurance side, and that's when you get into like Luigi Mangione, who assassinated the United Healthcare high up, and like basically, he's saying that it like he was acting like we were at war, like he's killing millions of us by making these decisions and denying health care coverage to poor people. Well, he is like sitting up in his tower, untouchable by ordinary means. And so Luigi felt the need to show him and the other upper echelon they aren't untouchable. And that frustration, that sentiment has been growing in this country for a long time. I'm 30 years old. I it's been a long time coming. Things have changed though recently, and I think that we really need to fix the problems and set things right. And there are solutions being offered. If we could just fix things, and we could, if everyone was on board, our strength as a species comes from the collective, our collective power to do things. That's always been our greatest strength as Homo sapiens. Let's do that. We can make it through this. I know that it's bleak and it seems hopeless right now, but everyone wants the same thing here. We just want to be okay. We just want to be happy. And everyone can have that. Please, you just get on board because it's very possible. And if we keep playing these games, we are never going to achieve it. We evolved this neurodiverse population for this exact reason. I am on the spectrum and I experience lots of problems because of it. I get in lots of fights just because I don't know the like right thing to say. And like people misread me all the time. Right now, I'm fighting with my mom for the first time in my life, and it's totally my fault, but I can't fix it. Like I would need to be able to talk to her face to face to like be able to see her to figure out the right things to say, like talk with her. Otherwise, I can't do it. Like over text, I'm just making it worse. And I am been trying hard for months. And it's gotten to the point where she won't even come and see me. Like I'm begging for like support and like attention and telling her like, please, I'm so lonely. Will you please like just come, like just hug me? Like we don't have to talk. Like I just want some closeness. And like I feel so pathetic. I'm like begging my mother for like scraps of affection. And it's been months and I have not seen her one time. And I keep saying, like, I'm so lonely and I feel so alone. And she's like, don't say you're alone. There's so many people who care about you. And I'm like, who? Where are these hypothetical people? Because I'm here day after day in this house that I can't afford by myself, living alone, seeing no one. And I'm also, besides being autistic, I'm also epileptic after my brain surgery and like the coma afterwards. And I've had seizures and memory problems ever since. And so I struggle. I struggle. It is a struggle. And like at work, I am struggling because of the autism right now. Because of the epilepsy, I need this paperwork, the FMLA paperwork, to where I can work and be okay. But I it's like because of the autism, like I couldn't get in the paperwork because I was my primary care changed specialties, so I had to get a new one. And then to get the first appointment, it was like they booked way out when my last FMLA expired, because I've had this job for years and they only do these every 6 months. I need to put in a new one. And so there was a gap when I didn't have any FMLA, and they started escalating me through disciplinary actions. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And step 3 is like final warning for like bad behavior. And they did this because I was having seizures at work, like, and I was having problems with my disabilities at work, and to where I wasn't able to like perform on the clock like I was a perfect, neurotypical undisabled person, because I'm just not. I've never been. I have permanent disabilities. You only accept paperwork for 6 months. This is my fourth one. I've been here for years. You and so I was just like, please, I'm begging for help, like, and you're just like punishing me for being disabled when like I'm begging for these protections and you're saying you can't give it to me without a doctor's note. I don't have a doctor right now. And so now that I have a doctor, I have the paperwork and I'm struggling to get it in. They're not accepting it, and I'm begging for meetings and I'm just getting blown off. And my my managers and everything, they mean so fucking well. Like, I don't want to paint a bad picture of them. I think I'm not positive about this, but my old headset broke and I had such a tiny head that like those ones that go over with that are like sturdy, they just fall right off. And mine fell off and broke. And my company just sends out like cheap ones like that don't fit me even at the smallest setting. And so I had to, my old manager who retired, and I really love her, but like I felt like she was like discriminating against me because I literally had I was like begging her for her help, and she was like just telling me like, no, it makes perfect fucking sense that you're being punished for being disabled. And I'm like, I know that I'm not communicating this correctly, but like, do you not hear yourself and like what you're saying to me right now? Like, this is so hurtful. And like, she's so kind though, because she knows that I'm struggling financially, and so I couldn't afford to go out and buy my own headset, and like I was trying to work. And so I think she spent her own money. If she didn't, she went and got it expedited a lot for me. She got me a headset that she let me pick up on Amazon and mailed it right to my door. And they work perfectly. Like, she's great. I love my manager. And like my supervisor, I really love her too. And like I have lots of great people at work. But right now I'm being treated really, really poorly. And it's just because like right now I'm experiencing a lot of burnout and my communication skills are deteriorating. And like I have just been alone for way too long and my people skills are falling apart. And my temper, I have such a short fuse, and I just cannot articulate anything. Like, I just get into fights. Like, people think everything I say, it feels like all my words are being twisted in the worst possible way. Like, I know I sound grumpy because I'm in a horrible place, but and like I do go off easily, and so like you do kind of like my mom was like, it feels like I have to walk on eggshells, and it's like, yeah, well, I am on the edge. I am barely holding on because I'm so alone, and like I have been. I My rent is double what I make. Like, well, not my whole, that's not true, but like basically, I make half as much as I need each month. Like I was getting by through having a partner who was also working and making the same amount as me. But our relationship didn't make it through this move either. So I lost like my mom and my partner, and now like I'm all by myself. And it sucks. And so it's hard for me to know that this is a cost that I'm paying so that at the group level we can benefit from the neurodiversity and the unique perspective that like I could bring. And then to see how voices of experts and of neurodiverse populations are being treated in this country, it's just really sad to see. That last criteria for use to be considered a eusocial species, having your place in society be determined by your birth um, and to have like a reproductive caste. Like I would argue that in Homo sapiens, in humans, that our social technologies like religion and we just society as a whole basically we basically I would argue that those enforce reproductive roles and reproductive castes. And like, so I feel like we kind of are a eusocial species. Our cities are like our houses, like we've always built these crazy structures. Like, I feel like we just are a eusocial, but that is not the consensus, just so you know. But I like to think of us as one. I feel that the thing that is special about Homo sapiens as a species is we aren't the strongest hominin. We're not the smartest hominin. We don't have the biggest brain of any of the apes. We're, what makes us special is that we have each other. We're the most social ape. And like it so much so that we've outsourced our thinking. We've decreased our brain size. Like Neanderthals had bigger brains than us. We didn't need to have all those brains because, you know, what do they say? Like you stand on the shoulder of giants. Like we we all benefit from the knowledge of the people who came before us. You know, like I do not have electricity in my house because I'm so much smarter than the Neanderthals. It is just because of the circumstances of my birth. It's because of who and where I was born. It was not a decision that I made. There's nothing that I could have done to affect that outcome. And so I think that people are a little too stringent in the scientific community sometimes. But luckily, I don't have any kind of an audience. So I don't have the uh, I don't have the responsibility of being super by the book, you know, because in reality, you know, Homo sapiens, the general scientific community does not consider it a eusocial species, obviously, but their anthropologists definitely agree that we are a highly social species. That is not up for like debate. It's not controversial to suggest, but it is kind of anything is kind of controversial in anthropology because it's not only science, which is always technical and nitpicky, which I mean, I love just being honest. But not only is it that, but then you're dipping your toes into the like complexities of it's us. Like then you have to deal with like all the weight of that. Like, you know, they're doing like race science basically, and like finding out how like different like skin tones evolved, which is really interesting. I would, but like because they do that and they don't want to be looked at as like an illegitimate branch of science, they are very careful about the way that they portray their like findings and stuff. And like evolution and Darwinism in general has always been under attack in this country from like the religious side. And so it's kind of understandable that they'd react by like trying to play everything really by the book. But I feel like sometimes that leads to too, like the dogma becomes too strict and like they're just not looking with like a flexible enough view at the situation, in my opinion. I think that it's pretty obvious that like humans, like sociality is what we have going for us, and that we have been evolving towards sociality for a very long time. And I think that AI is actually the last thing that we needed to unlock to be able to do that. Intelligence is a really expensive evolutionary investment, but it can pay off huge for the species that specialize in it, basically. And in eusocial species, we're the first one that we know of to be an intelligence based species. That is eusocial. And so like all of our other eusocial animals are like we think of them as basically mindless. Like I love hymenoptera, I love bees, I love ants, but like they're not getting any respect in this country. No one thinks of them as these like great cool things to be, and so like and they don't think of them as being very smart. And so they're you know, I think that we basically don't want to think of ourselves like them. And like, but like, I think that it's really interesting because I think that that's the reason why eusociality looks so different in this case, because we are not enforcing it like to where like we don't need to have evolution sterilize massive groups. In fact, that would hurt us. We want them to be able to reproduce, but we are already controlling it. Like we have been sterilizing people for decades in this country, forcibly. Like we have been taking people we do not think should reproduce and take away that ability from them and forcibly sterilize them. Like there are tons of black women who this happened to, like in prison. Like they'll just go in for like an appendectomy, and they'll wake up and they're like, yeah, we took out your uterus, sorry. And it's like, what? But I wanted kids. And they're like, yeah, that's why we took it. Like I mean, they don't say that, but like that's literally what they're doing in this country. It's like these are like eugenics projects. It's really upsetting that this is like what we have a history of in this country, and that people are just going on like this is okay. Like we need to care about each other because all we have is each other. We have to have a more communal way of thinking. We have to be a community. We have to be there for each other because we can't do it alone. No one can do it alone, but we don't need to. We are a social species for that reason. We have each other. We can lean on each other. We can be there for each other. We can support each other. Like we can do this. It's not impossible. We know what we need. The solutions are there. We can do this. We can do this together. In ancient China, they had, it was really cool. They had like a meritocracy where they had the like these first ever standardized tests, and they put them out, and the highest scores were how the who became the political officials in the area. And of course, like they had the emperor, and so like that was a dynastic system, but and that's determined by birth, obviously. And then where you live is determined by birth, but their political system tried to look for the best and brightest. Now, this was not incredibly effective because that requires standardized tests to be a good thing, and for like the like population to be literate, to be able to take the tests, and education has to be something that's common. And so today we have the tools to make these cool systems work in a way that they just could not in the past. And so I'm actually like in support of some like really radical leftist things. Like I think that communism is like almost inevitable at this point. Like I'm not just like a communist. I just think that like universal basic income is going to happen. AI is going to replace all the jobs. My job, I could code if my job gave me one day and like a small budget to buy an AI program, I could code something that could take my entire job. Well, I mean, I do have to have a license for it, so maybe that's protecting me. But I don't know how long that will be the case. As soon as AI gets, like people's trust, once people recognize, once it gets to the point where it's not iffy, and like if we don't start taking this shit seriously, that's not going to happen. But I think that we're not it's the most profitable thing in the world right now. We're not going to fumble this. We're not going to let this slip through their fingers. Like they're making tons of money off this. They don't want to let it go. So my job is definitely going to get replaced at some point, because like I think that once people are confident in AI's abilities, then they will let it do things that even a licensed person would have to do, because it can be an expert in anything. And so then my job won't be necessary. And I mean, any job that's on the phone is already unnecessary. We used to have call centers that we used to have to compete against domestically, but now AI has just made all calling like unnecessary. Like AI could just dial and talk to people better than any human could. They could do it with a consistency that no human could match. But we can utilize this technology like we utilize the invention of agriculture and cooking and language and fire. Like these things are investments that pay off. Like when you are evolving intelligence, that's a big deal, actually. The evolution of cooking and intelligence, they have a relationship that's really interesting evolutionarily. So evolutionarily speaking, intelligence is a large investment. A huge portion of our metabolism is consumed by just our brain. Like a large portion of the calories that we eat each day go to just powering our big brains. It's a pretty expensive thing to have around. It's why things that don't need it to survive generally don't just grow it for fun. But things that benefit from it and need it to survive tend to unlock a bunch of other traits that then make it incredibly useful and kind of slingshot them right to the top and make it to where they stick around no matter what. Like, corvids are incredibly adaptable. Like, I think that they're here to stay. Like, I don't think that we're going to drive crows to extinction. They do really well in urban environments. Like, I think that they'll just work alongside us. But cooking, the invention of cooking. Like we invented fire and then we invented cooking. And I mean, not we, I'm pretty sure that cooking predates Homo sapiens, but hominins or, us, we like back in the line, we invented fire and then we invented cooking. And we've been in like developing these large brains, and we when we combine these technologies, we made the nutrients that we get and like the amount of calories that we get from things way bigger than if we just like were gnawing the meat off of like a carcass. And so like if we like when we chop up and fry and add all these veggies and seasonings and all this stuff and oil and add butter, it's adding calories and nutrients and it's giving us a mix like our dietary. And so our diets have changed so much. That's actually why we developed pale skin. It's not like moving into Europe we this like less sunlight, we needed more vitamin D. That was like the story that I had always heard, which I feel is problematic. But it's actually a reaction to the invention of agriculture and our diets changing to include grain. And grain does not include vitamin D. Naturally. Like that's why they are always fortifying it because we literally had to get pale skin because we suddenly needed all the vitamin D we could get. It was because like of a dietary deficiency. But when we do like in modern day cooking, I like we the invention of cooking. So like back then, the invention of cooking it was able to take the like calories that you would get from eating it raw and stretch the like nutritional information and calories so much further. And that was because we were able to do that because of our high intelligence level. And so it paid off in that we now have, we then, yes, it consumes more calories, but because we have it, we have cooking. And so now we are able to easily feed and meet those calorie demands. And so it's, you know, evolutionarily, intelligence is usually a big investment, but it can pay off huge, and it usually does. Because intelligent species tend to be very adaptable. They tend to be generalists, and in like we are. Uh, it's just so cool. I think of us as being like intelligence, an intelligence-based species that it is adapted to be eusocial. And that's so cool. There are so many traits that are unique to us because of that. Not just that we have chins and those other things, but I think that our sociality is what sets us apart. Our intelligence and our ability to solve problems and think through things is what sets us apart. And we literally developed, I am on the spectrum, literally for the purpose of like, so that we can have a neurodiverse population, so that we can solve problems just like we have in this country today. These are solvable problems. I might struggle to articulate those solutions, but I can see them. And I think that a lot of other people can too. But those voices are not being listened to. They're not being platformed. There are problems in this country that we need to fix.